I know this story will be divisive. Some people will say I was wrong, that I was selfish, that real love respects boundaries. But please, before you judge me, hear me out. Because when your heart chooses someone, there's nothing you can do. There can be 1,000 reasons to give up, but you only need one to keep going. And so you do. My name is Luisa. I'm 29. And for as long as I can remember, I've been in love with her. Lara, my best friend since our school days. The kind of friendship everyone called soulmates. And maybe it was. The problem was, only I knew that for me, it was more than friendship. It was love. A love that made my chest ache every time she smiled and called me little sis. A love that grew quietly, hidden between sleepovers, conversations that bled into the early morning, and promises to never grow apart. But life doesn't forgive silence, and I stayed quiet for years, until the day she told me she was engaged. Her voice trembled with excitement on the phone, and I pretended to smile. Dude, you're going to be my maid of honor, right? Maid of honor. I was going to be the maid of honor at the wedding of the woman I loved. Ironic, isn't it? It's funny how fate sometimes seems to test how much you can endure. I hung up with a shaky voice, but held back the tears. I slammed my bedroom door, lay down on the cold floor, and cried like a child. That news cut through me like lightning, but I couldn't let it show. Because in her eyes, I was just the loyal friend, the one who supports, gives advice, and roots for the other's happiness, even if it means tearing your own heart out from the inside. I remember the first time I felt something for her so clearly. It was a summer afternoon. We were about 15. We were alone at her house, watching some random movie. And then, out of nowhere, for no special reason, she rested her head on my lap. My heart stopped. And in that split second, I knew. I knew loving her wouldn't be simple. But even so, I agreed to be her maid of honor. I was involved in every detail of the preparations. I went with her to pick out the dress, helped with the bridal shower, smiled in the photos, and on the inside, I fell apart 1,000 times. Every dress fitting was a different kind of stab wound. Every story about her fiancé, a new thorn in my chest. And still, I pretended I was fine, because sometimes loving also means knowing when to be silent. Then came the bachelorette party, a weekend at a rental house with her closest friends. Lara was radiant, she glowed, and I could only think about how badly I wanted to be the reason for that glow. The first night, after a lot of drinks and loose confessions carried away by the wind, she pulled me into her room. She closed the door, sat on the bed and looked at me differently, a look I'd never seen before. A strange silence filled the space. My heart was beating so loud I thought she could hear it, and then she spoke. Lou, has it ever crossed your mind if we had met in another life? If you've also been through something like this, comment below. I've loved in silence. Your story can help someone else feel less alone. And if you want to keep hearing this real and profound story, subscribe to the channel now. It helps us continue telling stories like this with all our care. Her question echoed in my chest like thunder. If we had met in another life, I froze. I didn't know whether to smile, to cry, to answer truthfully, or to go back to being just the loyal friend. I felt my throat go dry. It was as if that moment was a veiled invitation, a whisper of something she might never have the courage to say out loud, but that had been hanging between us for years. I didn't know if it was the alcohol, the mood of the party, or an unconscious last-minute plea for rescue before the wedding. I just know my heart wanted to scream, but I only whispered, "Yeah, I've thought about it." And for the first time, she didn't laugh, didn't look away, didn't change the subject. She just stayed there, looking at me. A look that stripped me bare. That night didn't end the way you might be imagining. There was no kiss, no tearful confession, but there was something even stronger. The silent confirmation that there was something there, an invisible thread between us. And that tortured me even more, because knowing that she might feel it too only made everything harder. When we got back from the trip, I tried to pull away a little. But how do you distance yourself from someone who is a part of you? I tried to make excuses, pretend to be busy, avoid her messages. And she noticed, "You're different, Lou. Did I do something?" I wanted to answer, "Yes, "You're marrying someone else." But I just said, "I'm just tired. That's all." Lying became my shield. Pretending became my shelter. But inside, the love grew more suffocating with each passing day. It was 2 weeks before the wedding when she asked me to spend the day with her. She said she wanted to have a moment just for us before life changes forever. That threw me off balance. I went, because even though it hurt, I could never say no to her. We spent the day walking through downtown, visiting our favorite spots. We had lunch at that bakery with the smell of fresh bread we always went to. Her perfume mixed with the scent of coffee, and it gave me a strange sense of peace, as if that moment was a bubble suspended in time. At the end of the afternoon, she took me to the city's lookout point, our secret hideaway since we were teenagers. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and pink. She hugged me from behind and said, "Thank you for everything, Lou. If it weren't for you, I never would have become who I am." I closed my eyes. I tried to hold on to that moment as if it were the last page of a book I didn't want to finish. And then she added, "Do you think we can still be like this after I'm married?" That was like a slap in the face wrapped in velvet. It hurt more than if she had cut me out of her life completely, because she wanted to keep me close, but without making room for what really existed between us. I turned around and answered, "We can try, but I don't know if I can do it." She looked at me deeply, as if she understood everything, but didn't have the courage to face the name of the feeling. We stood in silence. The wind was blowing hard, and in that silence, I felt that something was about to change, even if I didn't know what yet. The week of the wedding, everything seemed to move in slow motion. The rehearsals, the decorations, the dress, all so perfect, all so far away from me. I smiled in the pictures, but inside, I was already in mourning. Mourning a love that was never truly born. Or maybe it was born, but on forbidden ground. 2 days before the wedding, she sent me a strange text. "Can you come over? Alone?" I went. Her apartment was quiet, with the lights low and the scent of lavender in the air. She was sitting on the couch, our photo album in her lap. When she saw me, her eyes were already welling up. And then she said something I will never forget. "I love him, but not in the same way I love you." If this story is getting to you, comment below. I know what it's like to love like that. Your comment can reach another woman who is also living in silence right now, and it helps so much to keep this project alive and bring real stories like this to other people. I love him, but not in the same way I love you. Those words shot through me like a silent bolt of lightning. My body went cold. My heart, which had swallowed words for so long, felt like it was about to leap out of my chest. I didn't know what to say. I just stood there, looking at her as if I were in a dream or a nightmare. She took my hand. It was shaking. "I don't know what to do, Lou. I thought it would pass, that it was just confusion. But the closer the wedding day gets, the more I think about you. The more I remember your mannerisms, your scent, your laugh, and it's killing me because I didn't want to feel this right now." Her voice broke, as if each sentence was a crack in a wall she had built for years. And in that moment, all I wanted was to kiss her, to tell her she didn't have to get married, that I was there, that we could run away together. But I didn't, because I was scared too. Scared of destroying her life, scared of getting hurt again, scared that this was all just a panicked bride's venting. So I took a deep breath and asked, "Are you sure about what you're feeling?" She didn't answer. She just hugged me tight, and in that hug, I understood everything. I understood that her love for me did exist, but it was a cowardly love. A love that only showed up in the shadows, in the silence, between the lines. A love that might never have the courage to be truly lived, and I didn't want to be anyone's shadow anymore. I pulled away slowly. She looked at me with tear-filled eyes, and I said, "You need to decide. And whatever it is, decide for yourself. Not out of fear, not for me, for you." I went home with my chest torn open. I spent the night awake, tossing and turning, replaying every gesture, every look, every touch from the past few years. I wanted so badly for her to knock on my door in that moment, but the day broke and nothing. Silence, no text, no call, and I knew she had made her choice. The wedding day arrived. I almost didn't go, but I went, because despite everything, I loved her, and I wanted her to be happy. even if it wasn't with me. When she walked down the aisle, dressed in white, I felt such a sharp pain in my chest that for a second I thought I was going to faint. She was beautiful, a vision, but her eyes searched for me in the crowd. When they found mine, she hesitated, just for a second. But I saw it, and in that second I knew she was suffering too. The ceremony was a blur, the priest's words, the vows, the applause, all distant, as if I were outside of myself. At the reception, she came up to me. A forced smile, wet eyes. "Thank you for coming." All I could manage to say was, "Congratulations, Lara." And I smiled, the fakest smile I've ever given. She started to say something, but her mom pulled her away for a picture. And just like that, she was gone, taking with her everything I never had the courage to say. I went home alone, in the rain, without an umbrella, as if the universe were crying with me. And there, in the middle of the wet street, I screamed. I screamed her name. Once, twice, 3 times, and no one answered. The following weeks were gray. I avoided everything that reminded me of her. I deleted photos, blocked her on social media, pretended to move on. But a part of me was still stuck in that hug, that afternoon, on that couch. One day, I received a letter from her, handwritten, 3 full pages. She said she was sorry, that she loved me, but she didn't know how to love me in the real world, that she chose the easier path, but not the truer one, that she hoped one day I would forgive her, that she would never forget the way I looked at her, and that if things had been different, maybe we would have been our best selves together. I cried reading it. I cried like never before. But there, in the midst of the tears, something shifted. For the first time, I understood that unrequited love can still be love. That sometimes, loving is letting go. That some stories aren't meant to have a happy ending, but they are meant to teach us something. And the most beautiful part of it all is that even though it hurt, I didn't regret loving her. If this story touched you, comment here. I've lived through something similar. Your experience might help someone feel less alone. After the letter, I spent days rereading every word, as if her handwriting were the last flickering flame of a story already in ruins. I tried not to reply. I tried to move on. I went out with friends, threw myself into work, smiled through forced dates with strangers my sister insisted on setting me up with. But everything was a little pale. Nothing had taste, scent, or color. It was as if I were still walking inside that church, watching her in a white dress, saying "I do" with her eyes on me. Until one day, without overthinking it, I sat on my porch and wrote back. 3 pages, too. But mine were a farewell. I said she would always have a place inside me, but that love no longer fit in the silence. That I needed to breathe outside of that story. And that I couldn't live waiting for a courage that might never come. I mailed the letter and went to the lookout point alone. It was late afternoon, the sky painted gold and pink, just like the last time. I sat in the same spot where she had thanked me for everything. I closed my eyes, and this time I cried in peace. A silent cry, the kind you cry when you're starting to accept things. There, for the first time, I felt something like freedom. Not a happy freedom, but a real one. The freedom to remember her without bleeding. To acknowledge that yes, I loved. And yes, it hurt. But now it was time to let go. To let go even without wanting to. Because real love doesn't trap you. It sets you free, even when it breaks your heart. The months passed, and slowly, the pain turned into a memory. A beautiful, albeit melancholic, memory. I started to write stories, fragments, dialogues I imagined we would have had if the world were kinder to loves like ours. That's when I realized that perhaps other women were also living hidden loves. Untold stories, swallowed silences. I decided to publish a piece on a blog I had abandoned years ago. The post went viral. People from all over the country wrote to me saying, "I loved like that too. This story could be mine. You told my pain with your words." And there, I understood. Sometimes we go through things not just to learn, but to tell, to light the way for those still in the dark. One day, I received an anonymous message on the blog. "Louisa, I read your post. I cried. and I understood that what I called fear was actually cowardice. Forgive me. I knew it was her. It didn't need a signature. It was the way she wrote, "Forgive me." It was the kind of phrase she used when she wanted to say so much without saying everything. But this time, I didn't reply. Not out of anger, but because there was no room for it anymore. Because for the first time, I was choosing myself. And choosing yourself after erasing yourself for so long, that's a kind of love that also deserves to be celebrated. Today, I'm telling this story to you, who might be living something similar. To you who loves in silence. To you who looks at your best friend and feels something you don't have the courage to name. I want to tell you that you are not alone. That this love, as painful as it may seem, is also valid. But I also want to remind you that you don't have to live in hiding. That you deserve a whole, free, guiltless love. A love that looks you in the eyes in front of everyone and says, "She's the one I want." Because loving in secret is beautiful in songs, but living truthfully requires courage. And you have it, even if you don't know it yet. If you've ever felt it was time to choose yourself, write in the comments, "Today, I choose me." You could inspire other women who are still trapped in stories that no longer belong to them. And if this story made sense to you so far, subscribe to the channel now. There are so many more stories to tell, and maybe the next one will be yours. A year has passed since the wedding day. A year since the letter, since the lookout point, since the last hug. A lot has changed. And at the same time, some feelings still live inside you, even after you've dismantled the altar where they used to reside. I started therapy. I got closer to my sister. I slowly came to understand that unrequited love is also a form of grief, because you have to bury an expectation, a future that only existed inside you, and that hurts. It's a dull, lingering ache, but it also heals. And I learned to heal myself in the quiet. I learned that I no longer needed to run from her memory. I just needed to change where it lived inside me, because as much as it hurts, there are people you will love forever. The difference is that you learn to love them in a way that no longer hurts you. One afternoon, coming back from a walk, I ran into her, by chance, at the neighborhood grocery store. Hair tied up, no makeup, pushing a cart with 2 bags of vegetables and a bag of rice. I froze. She saw me, and she froze too. For a few seconds, the world stopped. I felt my whole body tremble, but I took a deep breath and smiled. A light, genuine smile. Free of pain. She walked over to me. "Lou, you look beautiful." I thanked her. Her voice was trembling, as if seeing me there was a reunion with everything that had been left behind. "I read all your posts," she said. "I knew that you knew it was me." I smiled again. I knew. Silence, so full of everything that no longer needed to be said. And then she asked, "Are you okay?" And for the first time, I answered with conviction, "I am. I'm at peace." She smiled back, a smile that was part sad, part relieved, and she said, "I pray you find someone who loves you the way you deserve to be loved." I thanked her. We hugged, a different hug from all the others. No desire, no pain, just love. A mature, resolved, healed love. And there, in the middle of the canned goods aisle, I knew we had finally managed to say goodbye. It wasn't the ending I had dreamed of, but it was the ending I needed. Sometimes, life doesn't give us happy endings in the neat package we imagine, but it gives us liberation. And mine came right there, in that clean hug with no loose ends. I went home feeling light. Today, I'm getting to know someone new. A sweet, strong woman with a sincere smile and steady words. She knows my story. She read everything before we even went out for the first time. And still, she stayed. Or maybe because of it, she chose to stay. She looks me in the eye in a way that makes me forget all the silences I've ever swallowed. And there are no promises, no rush, just presence, just building something together. And for the first time, I'm living a love where I don't have to hide, where I'm not the secret, the doubt, the what if. I am the choice. I am the now. If you still love someone who can't love you back, I want to tell you, you deserve more. You deserve to be loved without having to beg, without having to wait, without having to erase yourself. You deserve to live a love that sees you, that hears you, that holds you in front of everyone and says, She's the one I've waited my whole life for, because that love exists. But it only shows up when we let go of what isn't reciprocated, when we stop settling for emotional breadcrumbs. I know, it's hard, it hurts, but the freedom that comes after is worth every tear. If this story helped you see something in yourself, comment below. I set myself free. Your voice might free others too. And if you want to keep hearing real, intimate stories full of truth, subscribe to the channel now. Your presence here is what keeps this all alive. Thank you for staying until the end. And never forget, loving yourself is the beginning of every great love story.